Hello all, I'm Sai and you're watching The Book Dragon. In today's video, I'm bringing to you my review of Death and Inside Story by Sadhguru. Now this is a spiritual book and it was released in February 2020. I've been wanting to read this book ever since it released itself, but due to various reasons I was not able to pick it up, and finally I got the chance to read it now this month, that is in July 2021. I had very high expectations for this book, all of which were surpassed very easily by it. And if you're looking forward to read it, in this review I'll make sure to include all the things that you can expect and the things that you cannot expect from this book, as well as my opinions on the book as a whole. I personally think that all the time and money that I invested in reading this book was totally worth it. I'm not saying that it is completely perfect in any sense. I liked like a huge 75% of the book, and the last 25% alone, I'm not sure whether I like it or not, but as a whole it was a really good experience. So without any further ado, let's get into the review right away. Now there are two things about this book which intrigued me a lot while I got to know about it. The first one is the concept of the book itself, which is very taboo in any society across the world. It's not just specific to India, but globally I'm sure that the concept of death is definitely a taboo topic, and most of us just prefer to let it away from our lives and keep ourselves distant from it as much as possible. I'm not saying that it will totally take your fear for death away from you, but it will make you understand death to some extent at least. And the second thing which was most intriguing about the book is that the tagline was really catchy for me. It is a book for all those who shall die. Death is a process and it's not an incident as we all consider it to be. Just like birth, which happens from pregnancy to the delivery of a baby across 9 months, death is also a process which happens across stages. So if you, just like me, think that death is an incident and not a process, I'm sure you will get some idea of what death means and how it is happening in our life, just like life is also happening. Now the book is totally divided into 3 parts. The first part is life and death in one breath. The second part is the gracefulness of death, and the third and last part is life after death. In the first part, which is life and death in one breath, he actually talks about how life and death are very similar concepts, but they are different only in a very few aspects. Since we can experience and see all the things in one half, we don't consider the other half to be equally as graceful and good. And the second part, the gracefulness of death, he talks about how in some ways death is far better than life, and also while doing that he makes it sure that he doesn't encourage any negative ideas at all, for example like suicide. So all those considerations while explaining such a delicate topic was also something which I liked a lot about this book. The third and final part, life after death, actually talks about ghosts and spirits and any other name which we give to the life that has departed from a physical body. Now that's the part of the book which I'm not sure how I feel about, but the first 2 parts are legitimately really good and very well researched according to me personally. And also, apart from just stating out facts, he includes a lot of life experiences from his own life that he has faced through the years that he has lived, and it was also very interesting to read. Now talking about the first part, which is life and death in one breath, he actually talks about death and life as similar concepts and equally important concepts using the concept of breath. Okay, one of the basic signs that a person is living is to check whether they are breathing or not, and each and every breath consists of both an inhale as well as an exhale, right? So if we consider to just take an inhale alone and stop exhaling, it means that eternally we are just going to die, and not peacefully also. And another line which he has included in the book which meant a lot to me was that life needs some tension in order to make it working, whereas death is complete relaxation. If you read that line and give it some thought, I'm sure that the fear of death will definitely decrease to some extent in some way or the other. I'm not sure if it will decrease the fear of losing someone, but I'm sure that it can definitely help you to deal with the fear of death approaching in some way or the other. While explaining death as a process, he considers that life actually exists in the human body in the form of different types of vayus, and when a person is declared or decided to be dead, all these vayus tend to escape or release out of the body in different stages, and each of these stages occurs during different time periods after a person is stated to be dead. Now if you ask for scientific proof for each and everything that he's talking about in this one, I'm not sure it is always available. You have to try to understand some of the concepts as totally spiritual instead of just questioning everything. So if you're a spiritual person, I'm sure that you will find all these things interesting and enlightening in some way. But if you're a person who tends to question each and everything, and if you want facts in order to accept each and everything that you read from a non-fiction book, I don't think you'll get enough facts from this book. And the most important part from the first section of the book, which is life and death in one breath, for me was that how he explained all these post-death rituals that are done to each and every person after they are considered to be dead. It mostly focuses on the rituals that are done inside the culture of Hinduism alone, but he also includes some other different cultures as well. Now, personally, I am a person who thinks that when a person is dead, all the things that are done in the name of rituals after their death is not that important, because according to me, the person is dead, and instead of spending time and money for a person who's dead, that time and money can be spent for people who are actually living and try to help them in the name of the dead person. But after reading this, I am able to understand some of the reasons behind the rituals that are done. Moving on to the second section, which is the gracefulness of death. The first thing which he talks about is how animals and us human beings are so different when it comes to the concept of death, and how well they understand death more than we who consider ourselves to have six senses have knowledge about it. Now, for example, while you're seeing any animal at all, you cannot see a stray street dog dead in the road due to natural reasons. It might have been hit by a lorry or some other vehicle, and due to some accident it might have died, and you can see the corpse out there in the open. Even when it comes to crows which are just flying around the sky, you cannot see any crow dead due to natural reasons just around the environment in any way at all. He says this because animals know when death is imminent to them, and they seek solitude and decide to die in grace rather than just dying pathetically, whereas we human beings are not that much knowledgeable when it comes to embracing and understanding death as a whole, even to the extent that animals whom we consider to have less senses than we do. So that was definitely an eye-opening thing for me to read and understand. It is not just said as a single line. He takes at least like a few pages to explain this to us, and it is made very clear. Now, while explaining this gracefulness of death concept, he also draws in many incidents from the past, especially Hindu mythology. For example, there are some stories in the Mahabharata where some characters, after the war has ended, have decided to get into the jungle and live a life of seclusion in order to get their deaths in a proper way. And it was also really well articulated, if you ask me, because we all know the story of Mahabharata, at least to some extent, but the reasons behind many of the things which happen towards the climax, we don't have a knowledge at all. Most of us, I'm sure, will not have a knowledge of all these things, but there is a scientific reasoning behind each and everything that is said as mythology and tales to us. And I was like very much impressed of how he was able to draw all those things in order to make us understand some of the very basic concepts which we have to be taught even as children. We are taught many things nowadays as children, but we don't get the lessons for some of the important things like this one, which we have to understand in our very young age itself, so it will not be difficult for us to face while we are old and withered. So that was a really great thing to read about. It's not just Hindu mythology. In order to make it far more accessible, he draws incidents and examples from different cultures. For example, there are many references to Native American culture, and there is even a part which deals with Tibetan culture. All those things were new to me. I did not have knowledge about any of those things before, but after reading this, I did not just learn about them, I was able to relate this concept which he is trying to articulate to us with those things, and I understood it to some extent at least. Now, the third and final part of the book, which is life after death. I think that is the shortest portion of the book compared to the three sections as a whole, because the first and second sections are comparatively really huge, and there's also a lot of things which he explains in them compared to the last section. And I also think it was a really good decision to spend a lot more time on those two concepts rather than spending more time on the last chunk of the book, which actually deals with life after death, which is a concept I'm not sure many people will understand or accept as well. And also that's one of the main reasons why I'm not sure about how I feel about the last chunk of the book, because it has many things which I accept with and some things which I don't know if I'm okay with or not. As a whole book, it was really well written, and all the concepts that he has explained in this one is very understandable and lucid. Okay, he makes it so practical that I'm sure no one who reads this book will be able to deny most of the things that he's saying, because they are so practical and so on the face, and they're legit according to me personally. And as a whole, I think it was a really good read. And if you're a person who is in a spiritual journey and who wants to get some knowledge about death as a concept, I really do think that you should read this book, because it will definitely be very beneficial. Overall, I personally think that this book is a clear window for any people who's a commoner just like me to get a peek into the concept of death and understand it at least to the surface level, so that we don't get frightened of one of the very basic concepts which we have to understand while we are living life and not be frightened of it. So if you are a person who's looking out for a read like that, I'd highly recommend this one, because it is definitely worth all the time. So yes guys, that's all for today, and if you did find this video useful in some way or the other, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel, because I publish new videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.